Hello and welcome to the Miko Bits Show, and I'm your host, Miko Bits, and today we have an exciting show for you with Sebastian, who is from Sandbox. He's the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of Sandbox, which is, I would dare say, something that is a bit Minecraft or Roblox-like, but it is a blockchain gaming environment. But this particular wrinkle actually gives it an incredibly fresh take. And obviously, those are, the games I mentioned are actually very, very popular and exciting for people. So, I think we're going to really enjoy hearing about this. And I think he may even help me understand it a lot better than I just explained. So, just like any of my shows, this is information and entertainment, so it's not intended to be investment advice. Blockchain games do have assets and NFTs that are purchasable, so you should seek a licensed professional if you're looking at it from an investment perspective. So I guess without further ado, here's Sebastian.
Hey Miko, it's a pleasure to be with you today and introduce about Sandbox to the audience on the show.
I'm delighted. It's really exciting to have you. We did speak about the Sandbox with Robbie from Animoca Brands, and he was very excited about what you're doing. So I guess I'd love to get a bit of an update. So I can see there's some gameplay video behind you, and it looks beautiful and it looks very exciting. So I'd love to hear you talk about it a little more.
Video speaks better than words sometimes. So I say, hey, why don't we put our latest teaser in the background so everyone who's not yet familiar with games or NFTs, they can get a little bit of feeling, an overview, a quick overview, 30-second background video, everything. So basically, Sandbox, it's a gaming virtual world on the Ethereum blockchain where players and creators, they can make 3D assets or 3D games and monetize them through the use of NFTs, non-fungible token, as well as Sand, the main utility token of our platform. We, as a platform, provide three essential tools. One is a 3D editor, where essentially you can make 3D model and animate them. The second is a marketplace. So as soon as you upload your 3D model to the marketplace, they become NFTs, and you can start selling them, trading them with other users. So basically, it's an NFT maker accessible to just anyone, all the artists out there, and we got hundreds of them using it on a daily basis. And the last part is a game maker, which is no code, so no programming knowledge, no programming skills required at all to start playing around with your NFT. You drag them in the scene, they come with behaviors already made. An enemy will start attacking your hero, etc. And you can make cool games with that, publish them in the future on your lands. Those are free software that are already live in beta. We've been working for close to 3 years now on them. And the last component of the Sandbox platform, which is not yet live, is, I would say, the game client. Is essentially you as a player, you explore our map, which we're going to talk a little bit more afterward, and you jump into adventures using your avatar. You can either join social hubs and chat, interact with other users, or you can play all the various games that have been made by the creators and published on their lands, or made by us into a season system, which we might talk also about as well. And that last part, the public beta for players to enter in Sandbox, will be available at the beginning of 2021.
Wow, that's amazing. And, it's a really astonishingly deeply realized vision. And, I think it's really amazing. So I guess what I would love to understand, so where we jumped off with Robbie from Animoca Brands is we were talking very much about kind of the creation of like a metaverse environment, right? So including things like NFT art galleries and including things like games, and maybe there are in-environment games, which are sandbox games, right? Sandbox sub-games and games that player-invented games, right? And then there may also be a jumping-off point, right? So in a sense, you could see like integration between, he was talking about like his F1 Formula One racing game, right? So he was talking about integration between those in-game assets and kind of a potentially distinct and separable playable game, right? So, I think the thing we were talking about is the idea of that this could almost be like a Steam like a game catalog or art catalog, or but it's also a game itself. So I guess how do you see this kind of metaverse environment concept?
I think like that's the vision that Robbie has given is very close to what we are building. Sandbox started first, and I think it's worth mentioning for our audience, specifically for those of you who've been following for a long time. Sandbox started as a game, a mobile game in 2012. So it's been 8 years ago. It was a 2D single player game on mobile, on iOS, Android, which has grown into its own success with more than 40 million installs, million of players playing it on monthly basis. And overall, we launched a sequel in 2016, and in overall, all the players, they shared over 70 million creation online. But there was really no way for all those users, all those players to monetize the content they made, to monetize, to own and have any reward for all the content they contributed. And yet they were all contributing to the success of Sandbox in a way. Like if there was no user-generated content in Sandbox, then we wouldn't have been a success, bringing more and more players. So toward the end of 2017, when CryptoKitties appeared, we immediately saw the opportunity to combine NFTs with user-generated content. So that's really the starting point of Sandbox and the starting point behind of, I think, building an open metaverse where players, creators, they own the thing they create, whether they are the 3D model that will populate the world or the world themselves, which in the case of this new version of Sandbox, now 3D, multiplayer, multi-platform, it's not just a gallery or a Steam store, it's actually part of a map that contains 166 or 164 lands in total, and there will be never ever anymore. Each land is actually an NFT that also can be owned. So users can own their own piece of the virtual world.
Yes.
And in this virtual world, the location of your land does matter. Like it matters for many reasons. It matters because of, well, the sorry. It matters because of the proximity to specific attraction point. Those attraction point could be maybe it's the center of the map. Maybe it's because, and it's really unique in Sandbox, we do have major IPs and partners. So including, for example, Formula One Delta Time, but we have traditional IPs, the Smurfs, Care Bears, Shaun the Sheep, Atari, Roller Coaster Tycoon, and many key actors in the blockchain ecosystem, CryptoKitties, MakerDAO. You can see a few of them on this map, like Ultra, Square Enix, etc. So if you have your game located right next to the land of those partners, you are more likely to get exposure. And also when the players will be joining those key locations, they can travel to your land just by walking around the border or using our transportation system. So that's one main difference from just browsing a gallery and having no correlation about all the different content that's on the platform. And that's one of the bases. Building a metaverse where all the content is owned by the users, it means also like we've chosen to be 100% community driven. Like the keys to this metaverse is built in the player's hand, in the creator's hand. All the contribution they make, all the content they produce on the land they own will contribute to growing that overall value of that metaverse and will benefit essentially and primarily the content creator, the players themselves. So that's also a big change, a big shift with existing virtual worlds like Minecraft, like Roblox, where you can make content, but the way you can monetize that content is really, it's limited by how one single entity, the developer operating the platform, defines how you're going to monetize, what is the revenue rule, how much you can cash in or cash out, and what's the rev share for you. So you don't really have this feeling of owning your content, owning the way you can monetize it, and that your contribution to the success of the platform will be rewarding and engaging for you. And it goes beyond as using the utility token of the platform, you will also be able to participate in governance. So now we have a virtual world where users who own token of the platform can start voting on key decisions of the platform. That governance will be applied starting next year through our foundation being already live. And the foundation in Sandbox has been already supporting creators, content creators, artists, and game makers through 2 funds. We have more than 18 projects being supported by the foundation, games that will be launching in our virtual world at the beginning of next year. We have hundreds of artists who have been supported by the Sun Foundation to create amazing 3D models, amazing content that will be available in the shop and that they will be able to sell on the marketplace. And all that content is available on the marketplace. It can be used with the Sandbox Game Maker as one of the utility, but because it is an NFT, it can actually also be used by any other blockchain dApp which is on the Ethereum network, which will read the content of the user wallet and give a functionality to those NFT in their own app. This is called interoperability. And I think it's really powerful because that means that we can bring external NFT into Sandbox ecosystem to display them. So if you own NFTs from CryptoKitties, we can read them and we can display them in Sandbox virtual world. If you own art, crypto art, you could also build virtual galleries, etc. All of this is exciting already. It's happening already in the space of decentralized virtual world. And we are taking that one step further, really by adding that gamification layer. Like that's all the core expertise of our team for the past 8 years now, building games that will be fun, engaging, and retain users over time. And importing your asset or using the asset you've created, you'll be able to engage longer with the platform, participate in its growth and the revenue, and be part of a larger community.
Yeah, so you have a lot of interesting partners. I guess one thing would be really nice to do is maybe just zoom in on one partner and try to explain and understand more of what they're doing there. So, for example, let's jump in with Atari. They're very visible on your map, and it seems like they're a major partner. So, I'd love to kind of understand, like, what is Atari doing in Sandbox, and how do you see that?
Well, that is great. Let's start with the Atari example. Atari, Roller Coaster Tycoon, and all the IP catalogs from all the retro classics. So you can see on the map that big Atari logo. That's one of the locations where there will be Atari theme content. That main 24 by 24 estate is actually going to be an Atari theme park. So it's a social hub that players can enter, and they will see 3D representation of the Atari Classic as well as attraction, and they can chat, they can interact with each other. So it starts as being like a multiplayer social hub, and from there they can use portals and walk around to access games that will be split across the map all around. And those games will be based on some of the IPs and license from Atari. We also, and quite interestingly, so we've been doing just a month ago now, a land pre-sale that included premium Atari NFTs, some of them being 3D characters taken from their retro classic games, Centipede, Millipede, Blue Ninja, Red Ninja, and just a fun fact, Millipede actually won the prize of the best gaming NFT award this year. That came out of surprise, but I think it's a recognition somehow. And players were able to, or landowners were able to buy that NFT. It came bundled with premium land just around an Atari land. And they will be able to use their favorite Atari content and character to make their own games as well. Really, truly to that spirit of user-generated content that's proper to the Sandbox franchise, where you can create any sort of game and game experience without any specific knowledge.
That's pretty amazing. So let's delve into some more exciting IP partners. I think it's one of the things that we're seeing is the Smurfs. So I'd love to kind of understand this. I want to make a side comment on the Atari theme park, right? Which is one of the fascinating things that's happened is digitalization and the kind of COVID effect, right? So if you look at like a major player like a Disney, right? Like Disney has made huge announcements very recently about new Star Wars franchise and Disney Plus and Disney Plus revenue growth because Disney is like really committing itself towards digitalization because of the COVID, right? So I think the thing that's fascinating about a fully virtualized 3D theme park, I mean, we could certainly imagine in the future these kind of major theme park franchises like Disney, opening fully virtualized parks because, where are they supposed to go, right? I mean, obviously COVID will come and go, but like, we've fundamentally created a shift in our culture. But I guess, what I'd love to do is kind of jump over to, other partners, because these are all very exciting places in your world. So, I'd love to, I think the Smurfs
Absolutely.
deserve some time. It's a very classic and fun franchise.
Well, what COVID did, and I think it's really been a major changer in how people can appreciate their relation to the virtual world and the digital in general. Like there might have been more friction to, I don't imagine myself playing in virtual world or interacting with other users in video all the time, etc. And now it become the norm. So suddenly we've had hundreds of millions of people, if not billions of people, who've been interacting in very poor ways, just videos, chat for most of them, and some of them into virtual world. And now I do believe blockchain and COVID have truly changed life, and essentially we have a different perception of how we can live, how we can work, how we can play, and now thanks to blockchain and NFT, how we can earn from our activities into virtual world. And the blockchain NFT part enabled to build to that economical layer on top of the content that's being played and produced in our virtual worlds. And that's something I think really powerful. And we're just starting to scratch the surface. But as long as you have game asset and potentially all sorts of other assets that are of value that can be traded between users who are building content for the 3D virtual world and building an ecosystem of content production, farming of resources to participate into play to earn game loops and etc. It's really opening this whole new set of opportunity, whole new jobs, and potentially an economy that could outgrow the economy of the real physical world in the future. So that's what my long-term vision, like 10 years from now, I think like the economy of virtual worlds, gaming or not gaming, will be larger than the real world economy. But back to the little blue creatures that are the Smurfs.
Yes, the Smurfs.
Well, Smurf, we did run, so we have licensed the Smurf. There will be a Smurf village in Sandbox virtual world. So that's a place where users will be able to socialize, chat, interact. Each IP has its own twist. So I think the idea here is like you will be your avatar, even though you can customize your avatar, etc. You will, if you are in the Smurf village hub, you will be turned into a Smurf. So you have to pick a Smurf avatar to chat and interact with each other. And we had a successful pre-sale last week of lands are located around the Smurf village area. We sold out about 5,500 lands in less than 2 hours. That's been really showing the great demand for the land and virtual estates in our virtual world, and also like how people are keen to collect those Smurf and use them in the future to create their own games with them and be part of that social hub. So overall, when you see like the Sandbox, all those IPs, etc., I think we're progressively taking a step further toward that vision that became mainstream with the Ready Player One movie, where the character is in a scene where he sees Batman here, he sees an Atari character there, and it's a big mashup of a lot of IPs within that virtual world, or a little bit like in Wreck-It Ralph as well, for those of you who've watched that movie. And in a sense, we want to give that feeling in Sandbox as well. Like you can be in a land that's on a specific film. It's more like MMORPG. So you're here, you're fighting skeletons, etc. You move around, and then bam, you're in the Smurf village, and you start chatting, hanging around with all your users. You complete quests, but different gameplay, and then bam, you move to the next one, and it's another gameplay. And there's whole lot of exploration and discovery around that's going to happen as you move around those lands. And you can move around those lands just by yourself, walking, exploring, or you can be driven around those worlds by the gameplay and the season system we'll be introducing next year.
Well, that's very exciting. And, I think what's funny about the Smurfs is that, the Smurfs have actually found their way into gamer culture because the concept of a Smurf account is the concept of an account that's designed to make you weak, right? So like if I have a main account in a game, and I play very strongly, I have a highly leveled character, and then I have a Smurf account, right, which is an account where I can play almost like a pro player can actually play as a level 1 character and destroy everyone, and so it's funny because like the Smurfs, it's so funny to see these generational things, right? Because, I think I'm old enough to actually have grown up with the Smurfs cartoon, and of course I grew up with Atari, right? So these brands are actually like super deep for me, like as an older person, but it's so funny
that's
to
actually been part of the strategy. Like we didn't pick it's not just kids IP. It's real IP that's been there for more than 25 years. So we're old enough to have grown with them.
Yes.
And we are the right target for Sandbox at the moment. Like we're aiming for more like 25 to 45 players to roam. Like they want a space where they can play, they can create, and they can earn revenue. And maybe kids are not yet appealed by that third component of Sandbox, which is around like the incentive around token finance, taking tokens to earn more content, to earn more Sand token as well, participate in governing this new virtual world. Those are things that are meaningful, but to a more older audience.
No, I like this. And, the thing that's fascinating about this is that, like, one of the investors at Guggenheim recently gave a price target for Bitcoin of $400,000 right? So this is Guggenheim, like this is a pretty big family, money, and very reputable, right? And his mood was he was talking about essentially a generational asset, right? So the thing that's so funny about it is he's talking about this emergent generation, but what's really interesting is that when you do look at the demographics of things like Ethereum, despite the youthfulness of Vitalik Buterin and others, the average users are actually, kind of more like our generation. They're a little bit on the older side as opposed to kind of the pure gaming. So if you look at, for example, the Minecraft demographic, those are different demographics, right? Like, I think so. So I think Sandbox,
it changed.
It's very interesting, but I do think that they're coming. Like the generational shift is underway.
I agree, but the Minecraft audience changed. Like initially, it was like adult geek developers, etc.
Yeah.
And as soon as Minecraft started to have like the console and the phone version, then the audience really it became a mainstream success, but the audience became younger and younger, and it's been used for many various reasons, obviously, but definitely like that early adopter audience, those who were like installing the Java version with making their own mode, their own servers, changing the rules, they are no longer part of that Microsoft own version of Minecraft where everything has been simplified. So that's the shift, and it might happen in Sandbox over the life of Sandbox. But for now, I would say core audience is more like you and myself, and And yes, that's something that I love about the idea of like generational transmission of the ownership of game assets.
Yes.
Like it's something I wish like if I was able to keep all the content I won when I was playing like Super NES, Nintendo 64, or PlayStation
Yeah, I
game,
love that.
and transfer them to my kids in the future. Like I played Pokemon cards with my 5 years old kid, and why can't I just give him all my the game assets? And now with blockchain, that's possible. So within 10 years, like all those Smurfs that you could be able to transmit them to your kid, which will be grown by then, or your just if you have kids by then, let's see, and and it maybe have appreciated in value during
No,
that time.
I
Like,
love that. It comes back to Disney, right? Because when you look
mhm,
at the kind of Disney theme park aesthetics and things, one of the things that they're very much interested in is that intergenerational transfer of the value, right? Because they're really, obviously all of this relates to the meaning and memories and
yes,
history, and and so all of this generational transfer of that knowledge and wealth of knowledge and experience and history, like it's incredibly exciting. So I like that mindset. So yeah, so do you have any kind of favorite kind of clever IP partner, other than Atari and Smurfs, because we've mentioned those.
yes.
Obviously, we also mentioned F1, which is the Formula
Mhm.
Racing. So do you have any others that I think, for me, I'm interested in like the use case, like anyone who's doing something novel or clever or cool.
Yes, well, it's still confidential, so can't announce yet, but it's something we've been working for a couple of months now, and we should be able to announce early 2021.
Wow.
Those are more adult IPs, globally known. Think about like Hollywood TV shows or Hollywood series,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
and they have their whole universe. They've been going on for years, and they
Wow. I can't wait. I can't wait. That's gonna be
yes.
incredible. It sounds so tantalizing. So I'd love for you to come back when you can say and announce it.
Mhm.
Because we're definitely excited about these all of these players, right? Because the thing that I think is so exciting and beautiful about what you're building is that it is kind of open world, right? And the thing that I think is great about what you're talking about transfer of assets and intergenerational transfer, is that the blockchain to me is a consensus history recording device. I had this beautiful conversation with the CryptoKitties guys, and
Mhm.
we were talking
Yeah,
about
Mick or
yeah, both Roham and Mick. So
Ram.
and
Okay.
we talked about like, if you think about blockchain as a history recording device, right? Then it changes the way you understand CryptoKitties, right? And it makes you understand that CryptoKitties are owning a piece of blockchain history, and it makes you also understand that crypto doggies or crypto fish or whatever like actually are much less interesting, right? They're less interesting because those are not the historical groundbreaking assets, right? The kitties are, right? And so and it's fascinating to see how you're able to build kind of a metaverse within which people can have experiences, and those experiences can then be recorded into the assets and into the
Mhm.
into the world narrative, but also into the assets themselves, which I think is incredible.
you, you can own a part of one of the very first virtual real estates on the blockchain, and know that uh, virtual world was really set for gaming. And there's two things interesting and I want to mention. One is that ID, that the value it's intergenerational. But if you own very early on a piece of land into a virtual world, and that land suddenly has content that develop, it brings more and more players because of its history, etc., and it attracts more and more users. The value of that land is likely to grow because it's scarce, because there will be not ever any more that's being made. And you can transmit that to other people, or you can just rent it and have business around it. It's still your land, your piece of land that no one can take away from you, and that's
So
powerful in a way.
So when you decentralize, so are you going for a fully decentralized governance model?
We're going through it, but not right away. Our plan is within the 3-5 years, we'll progressively introduce a community-driven DAO that will be able to take on decision and vote and participate in the governance of the platform.
Got it.
Right now, you can still have ownership in Sandbox, essentially by either owning the token, owning the land, owning the asset. Like the more and more people own land, the more and more they are the one that's going to decide the fate of that world, what's going to be built on top of it, etc. We are here at the beginning because in user-generated content world, you can say, yeah, we provide tool and we let the community do everything. I'm not a big fan of that idea because generally it leaves more randomness to whether you will get a great amount of very good content being produced or you will lower the general quality of content on the whole platform. So we're still here, but progressively decentralizing, making it more and more UGC, not producing or no longer supporting content creation after 2 or 3 years. But we've set the bar by ourselves by supporting the high quality content creator game that will showcase the potential of Sandbox. And players will more like that. Like if you come to a world and it's only mini games, you can play for 2 minutes, it's fun, but then okay, and you're gone, you'll most likely not come back. The expectation from modern players is like, well, I want Cyberpunk 77. So how you need to set yourself a bar that's pretty high in terms of like where's the fun, how long can people play, how do you make them come back into your world.
Yeah, of course. So, to me, for example, one of the things that's kind of tiring and, is really offers an opportunity for companies and projects like yours to disrupt is kind of how virtual worlds have treated their users, right? And so, for example, if you look at something like, this is a completely unrelated topic, but when you look at the idea of land in the concept of something like World of Warcraft, like obviously you don't have player-owned land anyway, but the thing that the players have grown to expect is effectively every single expansion pack involves the creation of new land, right? And so the thing that is interesting is if you have like a corporation that's responsible for land, they can actually create a lot of revenue for themselves by issuing more and more and more land, just the way that any central government would issue more and more and more of US dollars or any currency, right? So the thing that becomes interesting from a player ownership perspective is kind of, and I think you can start to soften that by maybe making promises about issuing of new lands, or, because I do believe that that's going to be an interesting tension, because in the real world, we know inflation
our model
real.
Inflation is real. Our model so far is like there's only one land, 166 by 464, one map, 166 by 464 land in total, and we'll never ever make any more. At least we will not decide that. If one day, in 5 years, in 10 years, when 100% of Sandbox tokens, land, and sand is being owned by players in the community, they might vote to do that. And if they do that, they will do it in a way that benefit the most the community that vote, not us anymore. Right. Because they will decide if we increase supply of land, maybe we can have more creators produce new content, and that can create a virtuous circle again. Or, oh no, it's going to deteriorate the overall value of existing land. So we do not want that, and we prefer instead to activate more content creation and incentivize more creators, for example, by doubling the size of the funds allocated to find new projects with our foundation. And that decision will no longer just for us to bear, it will be really in the hands of the community behind.
So how do you see project like Decentraland? So how do you understand that project?
Well, I think it's great that there are many different actors, everyone focusing on their own niche, but participating to grow together, like adoption of blockchain and adoption of virtual land and virtual worlds. Decentraland has I was one of the very first to launch in the space. There's also now Crypto Voxel, Somnium Space. Each one of them has really their own specificities. Some are focusing on like art galleries, events, more social events, but they don't have game and gameplay and killing enemies, quest, loot, equipment, upgrade your character, etc. like Sandbox does. Some are very focused on we are a VR experience first and foremost. Some are we're web-based, as accessible as possible, but we and we will keep making new lands, and we are happy with a low hand graphic style. But because this is not our strength, we recognize it. Our strength is into something else, and it's just great. Like as a user, you have a great set of of choices. You can really pick the community or the one or many virtual worlds you like for the different use. Like I want to play in Sandbox for 2 hours. I can go there. Oh, I want to socialize with other people who like crypto art and NFTs. Well, maybe I'll go here. So that's the beauty of blockchain. Like, and all the content I own that define my new digital identity I still keep it along the way. I don't lose it because I move from one to another. I can potentially join in one virtual world and start selling my NFT from Sandbox into Decentraland, or I can sell my wearable from Decentraland into the Sandbox in the future. All possibilities are there and open for giving more choice to the users and more power to the users at the end of the day.
So how do you see things like Oculus, and how do you see players like Facebook, in terms of, your experiences? So, obviously VR is important. So I want to understand your perspective.
I think like there will be bigger metaverses like the Facebook one with Oculus. Is it Realms that is called? I forgot the name, sorry. And
yeah.
There will be Minecraft that still exists. There will be Roblox that still exists. There's even NVIDIA who announced they are making their own metaverse where people can collaborate around the world to build 3D model real time, etc. So they're not going to disappear suddenly because a blockchain-based open metaverse exists. Like it's more like a cohabitation. And the thing is, in some of those virtual world and metaverse, you're there, but you're locked. Basically, your user account is on Facebook, all your data is on Facebook. Yes, your friends are there as well,
sure.
But you're bound by the platform. You don't know what they do with your data. You don't know. You cannot sell 3D NFT in the way you want. And it's more for you as a user to choose if you want to be part of that, or if you want to be part of other platform that gives you other rights and other permission and potentially an economical upside through the time and you're going to invest by being present, active, and contributing to the other virtual worlds.
Makes sense. Thank you. And so a quick question is how much is currently playable, or how much can we currently enjoy Sandbox, and when will the next milestone be?
So we have launched most of the product of the platform in beta. You have the 3D editor you can download for PC and Mac for free and make content. That's done. You can see the marketplace and shop. You can create your avatar already on it. You can download the game maker, and in that game maker, you can already create games. We have launched 2 game jams. We have had dozens of participation. People around the world submitting their game and winning prizes with it. There's an online gallery where you can upload your creation. It's not yet on the blockchain, but at least it shows there's already people using, 100 of people actually using on a daily basis the software and creating content. We have put a very first alpha version of multiplayer. So there's a social hub and we organize happy hours once a week where people come in and we can have a chat there. So that's the product. Then I think Sandbox is more than the product now. It's really being part of a community of people who are like-minded and want to build something bigger together. So in our community channels like Discord, Telegram, we have one of the largest Discord and Telegram that grown organically this year. And and you can always find people who love creating content, who are artists or who are gamers or who are game creators. We started even I'm hearing more and more stories of how we've been changing life since COVID. So COVID was great for game company and virtual world, but it's been terrible for the 99% rest of the world who either lost job or were unable to work in the other industry
It's
for
terrible.
such a long time. And what I've been hearing from more and more of our users that as they were home, they lost job, they found about Sandbox, they downloaded it, and they found themselves they were quite skilled at creating some content, and they started earning price from winning our game jam or selling content that they made or being hired by some of our landowners to create games for them. So there's already an ecosystem and economy in place of people being paid as contractors to build for other people. And now, like these kind of stories, I want to repeat it that 1,000 times, 10,000 times or more. Like I really want to feel like Sandbox is here. What we are doing has an impact into how we change life of people, the way they either play, work. And next year, what's coming in Sandbox next year and is big is really this play to earn disruption. So we've helped creators to earn more with Sandbox by building content. Now I want to really show the world what it means to earn through playing, getting engaged in the game, collecting resources, farming those resources, trading those resources on that are now tokens, so on open markets, and make potentially a decent revenue and hopefully more than salary through that way.
No, I'm super excited about this, to be honest, because one of the things that's been true in game history is we've actually seen these attention arbitrage opportunities, right? And game environments have created these kind of differential attention cost economics. So, for example, if you look at something like Machine Zone exploited the ability to acquire customers at a low cost in the Philippines, right? And then basically pay to win mechanics where they would sell heavy equipment to users in the United States that would destroy thousands of real users in the Philippines, and cause them, this kind of, emotional pain. In fact, Machine Zone even made a real-time chat translator that would translate Filipino Tagalog into English so that the American buyers of heavy equipment could hear the cursing of the people that were being blown up by the rich, like it's quite evil, actually. Like, so what I'm really saying though is, and another example of this attention asymmetry is actually IGN, right, which is Brock Pierce's company, which hired Steve Bannon out of Goldman Sachs to create Chinese World of Warcraft gold farming, right? But I guess to me, the thing that's so awesome about this new emerging trend that you're describing is that because of open platforms and effectively open source, we're now changing the exploitation dynamic of the arbitrage, right? And so, we had on our show Gabby from YGG.
Gabby from YGG.
Absolutely.
He's creating communities and scholarship to train players. So starting in Philippines and Indonesia,
yes,
to make them learn how they can understand the rule of a game, economical rules, and start making some extra revenue for them and their families, starting with one game that's live already, one of the pioneers in play to earn, Axie Infinity.
Yes.
And the Sandbox and F1 Delta Time as the two other main titles that YGG communities will be playing with as soon as the feature are live. What you're telling me about Machine Zone, IGN, etc., doesn't surprise me. Like, those games, these are quite interestingly the most popular top grossing game, which have players who spend thousands, if not dozens of thousands of dollars to participate into those competition and level up, etc. Those are the worst games that take care of their community and top well player. Like, they don't listen to them at all. They don't provide the quality support. Yeah. I was even hearing stories from like players having to organize strikes against the developer to be heard, just
Yes.
to be given the chance of having 30 minutes call with the game developer to say, we don't like that change. And so that it's really totally the opposite of being a community-driven world where the content is owned by the user and the users are given a voice via, but essentially we have in crypto, like it's crypto by nature is very community-driven. We talk, we have regular AMA, everyone can hear the founder, the co-founder of Sandbox, ask them questions on a regular basis on where are we heading, etc. But even if what we say is not what we do, they just can, oh, we don't like what you do. We sell all the land, we stop owning Sun, we don't believe in Sun anymore.
Yes,
and that will have immediately an impact on us and our capacity to continue building our vision. So like for me, that old model of machines on IG and ignoring the player and trying to just farm on top of them with, it's smart what they did, etc. I don't see that sustainable forever and ever.
Yes,
and I hope we're going to be moving into more community driven, where the community is essentially a major stakeholder of the game success.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke with Kevin Chu from, the Forte.
Yes.
Yeah, and Kabam, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's been very successful. And I think his mindset is absolutely this idea of like fundamental disruption through blockchain, simply because the player, like these AAA studios are kind of fat cats, right? So their whole attitude is basically, why should we give the players any power, and why should we just not squeeze them all for the maximum amount of control, the maximum amount of revenue, because it's working, right? And it is working. Like economically, those big mega studios are just reaping so much benefit, right? And so in a way, the idea that you're giving away economic value and giving the user ownership of land and ownership of equipment and ownership of their, forever, like in a way, it's very anathema, right? So I think because of this, disruptors like yourself are going to be the ones that carry this trend, because in a way, it's very much like open source software, which is it's consent. It's consent driven, right? So it's very much in the mood of like, if you like it, please come. If you don't like it, you may go elsewhere, right? So we don't control you, and you control us, right? So please come. You're gonna have more fun here. I think that's the end of the bottom line day, is that like people do understand at some level when they're being exploited and when they're being extracted, right? When they're the target of extraction, right? So I think that over time, people will flood to the places that give them the most power. So I think it's exciting what you're doing.
Thank you, Miko, for that. And we're still early on. Like it's been 3 years we're building Sandbox. Kitties has been out there for 3 years, but now you see NBA Top Shot. So as the industry get more mature and mature, we're catching up with the level of quality of those other games. And that's at some point we'll have caught up so much that as a player, that there will be no more hesitation between there's one game that does that and it's exploiting me and I know it. And there's a game that's on par in terms of quality. And all the things I'm going to invest, actually, it's really becoming an investment. Like the value will grow as I play more, as I bring more players, so that's where we're heading, I think, over the next decade. And I hope we'll have more and more interviews in Sandbox where I can share our progress overall, and you'll be able to see it.
No, but I love this, right? Because the thing that's so fascinating about these kind of anchor tenants, right, is if you look at this idea of someone like an Atari, and they create an Atari Land and they create a theme park, and they're early adopters and they kind of bring more fascination and more users, and like so many people start buying land around them, and that Atari starts creating, they're actually creating their brand halo, and so, but they're adding incredible value to themselves, right? Like their land becomes like such a deep asset that they kind of like, get the benefits of. So to me, like this, it's such a fascinating thing to see codified network effects, So I think your point is great, because when I see what Samson's going through with Excellion on this whole Infinite Fleet game, like it is definitely like obviously game publishing by itself is incredibly brutally hard, right? So, creating a from scratch like studio and from scratch AAA class game, like it is really hard. The game industry is brutal. So it is a hard,
Mhm.
hard world. And so many games go so far only to get like cancellation, not even blockchain games, but games, and so,
See, even Star Citizen, that game,
oh,
that how much did they raise?
oh my
And
God, the
it's
pain is
still
so real.
building.
It's so real. But the thing that's so beautiful about like already what's happening outside of blockchain is we're already seeing these indie titles. We're already seeing crowdfunding. We're seeing these kind of weird hits. Like I played a non-blockchain game called
Among
Darkest
Us,
Dungeon.
or
And Darkest
yeah,
Dungeon raised like millions of dollars on Kickstarter because people were like, this is just, I love this world that you created. I love the art you created, and so like, I think it's softening. Like, I think the kind of control, the major companies and their ability to dominate, I think it's softening. Like indies are
that's
coming, blockchain is coming, users are going to feel it. They're going to feel it in their gut. They're going to feel how much better it is.
absolutely. I'm fully agreed.
Wonderful. Well, this has been a great conversation. I've really loved getting a chance to look into the world of Sandbox. And, I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this and, look back at and understand this as a visionary, moment in the history of gaming in general.
Thank you, Miko. It's been a pleasure to be with you as well. I hope I'll be sharing some updates at least once a year with you, so we can see where we are heading, what we've achieved so far,
Absolutely.
etc. If I may share one news,
Yes, please.
I don't know if the video will be live over the weekend, but we're proud to inaugurate tomorrow, so Friday, December 18th at 1 p.m. GMT, for the very first time. So we're doing an charity auction
I love it.
for UNICEF, so in support of UNICEF, the charity that's
Wonderful.
helping kids around the world, where we're going to sell one primary located estate of land right at the center of Sandbox Metaverse. So that's one from our reserve. We never
Oh, I
sold
love
before
that.
any of them. And 100% of the proceeds are going to go to that charity, UNICEF. And we hope it will be successful and it will start setting like an antecedent where actions in virtual world and virtual land can do good outside back into the real world again.
Oh, I love that. I mean, obviously, like what we do know is that, for example, the Nobel Peace Prize recipient this year was World Food Organization. We've also seen up to 40% of low-income children, even in a rich country like the United States, are actually feeling food pressure and concern. So, what we do know is that UNICEF is an incredibly valuable resource for helping children and helping families, especially with the current COVID economic pressures. I just want to salute that. Absolutely, we'll release this tomorrow morning so that people can, catch up and understand this to be happening, and maybe even jump in and try to participate because, I think it's highly valuable.
Thank you, Miko. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and hopefully see you in the metaverse.
Excellent. Wonderful. See you inside of the Sandbox. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.